All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. I'm Mayor Jude Heeman, the city of Fort Mitchell, and today is November the 16th, 2020, and it's our regular city council meeting. And just for a roll call, I'll go ahead and just make sure that you can acknowledge and you can hear me. Mr. Dethridge?
Here.
Mr. Steckel?
Here.
Ms. Knockhazel?
Here.
Ms. Burns?
Here.
Mr. McVeigh?
Here.
And Ms. Berger?
Here.
All right, Ms. Berger's not on, but she's on, but you can't see her, so she's there. All right, well, we have a quorum of going through, so council.
I'm here too, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg.
Just want to set the record straight, you know.
I guess when Vicky got on, my pictures moved, so I apologize.
No
Mr.
worries,
Porteous.
no worries.
So council, you received a copy of the agenda this evening, and there's just a couple of things that I want to mention on the agenda. The first is there's a ordinance about the open burn, and I want to talk about it under the mayor's comments from the mayor's report. I would like to remove that for first reading tonight, and I apologize. When we went through that, this is an ordinance that we passed in 2017, and then we had to amend it in 2018, and now be reading it again in 2020. And some of the areas such as the penalties and things, sometimes it refers back to the first. And I just want to clean it all up and do that. So we can talk about that on the mayor's report, but I would like to withdraw that. And the other part is, I think, Amy, you sent the ordinance 2020-10. There was some corrections on some of the times, and it says budget meeting, planning session. I want to make sure that you've received that and you're looking at that. So that's the only, for the agenda itself, removing that and make sure. Is there any approval for that?
Motion to approve.
Ms. Berger, second. Mr. Polgears, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. There's two sets of meetings. The first meeting is the October 5th. Is there any corrections to that? The minutes? Motion
to approve.
Second it.
Burns. And second, Mr. Steckel, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, this next, it's a special meeting with the park board, and that was October the 27th, 2020.
Yeah, Mayor, there's, and unfortunately I wasn't able to be at the meeting, but in review of those minutes on page 2 in the second to last paragraph there, I just think it should be noted that if we're making statements of the city council members present, we'll consider a $500,000 gift and $750,000. It doesn't state whether that $750,000 is a loan, a gift, or I think that should be stipulated in the minutes.
Yeah, Amy, so we'll let the minutes reflect that it would consider the $500 to a $700 loan. And so in the amended budget that we'll be discussing later, I'll point it out, we did amend that to a $750 loan. Later on, we can forgive or we can discuss, but in the represented budget, I am showing it as a loan. But
Is it 750,000 now?
$1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Dollars.
Mayor, you
Yeah.
said $750.
That's but it's within, just round up. 750,000. Yes, thank you. Okay. So with those changes, Mr. Dethridge, is that a motion to
approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
A second, Ms. Knockhazel, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? So those are the minutes. Andrew, is there anybody, I guess, watching on YouTube to Facebook or any special questions from citizens and guests?
I have no comments currently on the YouTube stream. On Facebook, it's on TBNK's Facebook. Joe, I don't know if you have that up. I do not have that one up right now. I can,
Anything.
Joe, yeah, if you'll keep an eye on it, maybe later on after the mayor's report, we can address any other questions. So we'll move on. All right, under the city attorney's report, Claire, you're up. Our first ordinance is amending that budget. And if you'll, there'll be 2 readings. If you'll read that, and then I'd like Amy to step in and talk about some.
So we have ordinance 2020-09, an ordinance of the city of Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, amending the annual budget of the city for the fiscal year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, and directing this ordinance to be published by summary.
So Amy, I was pleasantly surprised. Obviously, there's been a lot of grant monies that we received in here. And if you want to explain to council, you and I had a chance to go over and where we're putting some of this and go through this.
Okay. Just remember that this ordinance is adopted by summary, which is, the page that looks like this. But if you'll notice on that, I did adjust all the beginning fund balances because all the revenue came in higher than what was anticipated from last year. So the beginning balance is higher. And then going through the detail, the items that are grayed out, those are the ones that were changed. So if you look at the revenue, we've increased the gross receipts tax. And what I did is what the actual number was last year, I calculated a 10% decrease. And so it's the same calculation as before. It's just we're starting with a larger number to calculate from. So insurance premium tax increased. Occupational tax went down a little bit. And then the payroll tax increased quite a bit. The franchise tax was coming in a little lower, so I took that down. And then the bank deposit tax, went up $60,000. And that's an actual number. The state certifies that and then sends us the number to bill. So we're collecting that right now. The incentive, the state incentive for fire and police, that's just based on number of employees. So it increased for the fire because we're, hiring the new recruitment coordinator. And then the police with the openings, we're not collecting as much because we're not paying out as much incentive because there's some empty positions. And then the other big change was all the grants that we're receiving from FEMA and the SAFER grant. And I don't know, what's the AFG grant? It's a firefighter grant. Adam?
Yes, the Assistance to Firefighters grant. We have 2 of those, one for the vehicle exhaust system and one for COVID supplies.
Right. So between all that, the beginning fund balance went up like 1,260,000, and then the revenues increased 658,000. So a lot of increases for the good there. If you turn the page on page 2 on the budget, I didn't highlight this, but if you look under transfers, the park fund increased, the transfer increased from 500,000 to 1,250,000. And then in the comment section, I wrote $750,000 as a loan. So if you go on down to the middle of the page on ending fund balance, with all the increases in expenses and revenues, the ending fund balance actually went up. So we are in a better financial position than what we had originally budgeted in this amended budget. Going on down into the general government expenditures, which is like admin and city council and just, the general expenses of the city. There was just a few small changes related to health insurance, just based on who's getting health insurance for their family or who's getting incentive by getting it through their spouse. So there was just a little bit of change there. On page 3, the IT is coming in a little bit higher than projected because we switched to a new system. And so there are some upfront costs that it's coming in a little bit higher. We did add some phone lines, so the telephones are a little bit higher. And then because our occupational license taxes are coming in higher, the collection fee that we pay Kenton County is a little bit higher. And then at the very end, we did purchase a server for $3,800 for some of our programs that we had to have a server for. So that's the general government expenses. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay. All right. It's just small changes to the incentive pay. The incentive decreased, as I said before, and then the retirement decreased also based on that because that's a percentage of it. On page 4 of the police expenses, there's a TASER subscription that wasn't in the previous budget. So that increased the dues and subscription. And then there is a grant, there's a COVID grant. Andrew, can you say what equipment that was for the COVID grant?
Yeah, that's going to be some personal protective equipment, some full face masks and canisters that had been provided to us by Homeland Security close to 15 years ago, probably 12 to 15 years ago, that are all expired and needing replacement.
Okay. Okay, the fire department at the bottom of the page, starting at the bottom of the page. The big thing is, which I forgot to grade that out, is the salaries increased for the new recruitment coordinator that'll be starting here on the November 23rd, and that's covered by a grant. So that was there, and then with that also the state incentive increased, the retirement increased. The volunteer stipends is increasing because that's covered by this grant. And also the medical insurance and the FICA and the workers' comp. So, and even the business health and wellness. And then the training includes all the tuition that's covered by this grant where there's scholarships. So that increases an awful lot, but that's all because of that grant also.
And Amy,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how much was that grant for?
Adam, do you know exactly?
So, yeah, so the grant total is 664, 652 over 2 years. The first year is a little bit higher. It's about 188,000 going off the top of my head for the first year of the grant. And then it decreases a little bit because it does not have, there's a few things that aren't in there the following years that are initial upfront costs.
Help me out here, because maybe I missed it. It is, because the fire department, fire and EMS expenses are up 262,000 approximately. Is that because the grant has not been applied yet? I mean, have you received the money for the grant?
No, it'll be a reimbursement grant. So once we actually,
Okay.
so yeah, we have quarterly reports we have to do for reimbursement.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
And that grant's in the revenue. So
Yeah.
it doesn't net against
I got you. It'll
expenses.
come out in the revenue then. Understood.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
On the first page, it says the 334, the grant, and then this is where it's taken out,
Flip
basically.
out. Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then going down the page, medical and first aid supplies have increased just for the COVID supplies. And then down below, there's some more grant supplies. That includes $25,000 of a COVID PPE grant. Some recruit jackets, which were covered by the other grant, and some uniforms for the new volunteers. Okay, moving on to page 6. There's about $38,000 of gear for the interns and recruits, which I would imagine that is that turnout gear, Adam?
That is turnout gear covered by the grant. That's where the higher number comes in for the first year. The second year, that number decreases.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Public Works didn't change too much. Just the fact that we had Chris going for military leave and we had to hire someone for his position. And there might be a little overlap. Well, there was a little overlap because we were still paying vacation and him leaving while we hired the new person. So the wages increased a little bit, and then Matt's getting new uniforms for him, the new employee, and then replacement uniforms for some of his employees. So that increased a little bit. Okay, if we move to page 7, as far as the wages, since we have Joe here, the wages for the most part stayed the same. I just decreased it for some overtime and holiday time because we're not using that, and then zeroed out the Halloween and decreased the summer and the winter recreation. I don't know, I don't even know if we'll spend that, but we need to have something just in case we do have some activities, either the beginning of next summer or this winter. So that decreased. The only thing that increased in municipal road aid was the beginning fund balance increase from last year's leftover amounts, or unspent amounts, I guess I should say. So that's it for municipal road aid. And if you move to page 8, just more engineering costs for the park. We're already over that 20,000. We're somewhere in between the 20 and 60 right now. I think we're at 30 something, but we will definitely have some more engineering cost if we are moving forward with this park project. And then on page 9 is the $1.4 million capital improvement spend for the park. And then there's the transfer from the general fund to the park. And that also says the $750,000 loan.
So council, with our meeting with the park board, how that next step will go is we're meeting again with the engineer and discussing everything that was talked about. Once we have those plans finalized, it's going to come back to council for approval and things. We kind of know where the budgets will come in. We'll put that back out for bid to do that. And then I'll ask council's approval to spend that. So there'll be multiple checks and balances along the way.
And then Mayor, so we're at 1.2 million right now, 1.25 million for the park. I would assume, and maybe it's probably not, hopefully it's not significant, but I would assume the RFPs may come in above that. So what happens at that point?
I think what we're taking out of the project on, some of the asphalt that we've decided to take out,
Okay.
some of the bleacher area. We talked about the dugout, taking some of that out, and then putting back in maybe the fence and redoing the equipment now. They wouldn't have that forecasted for the next several years. That's why they can afford that loan more.
Okay.
And I actually feel pretty good about it. I think people are a little bit more hungry right now.
Okay. All right. That sounds good to me.
The 1.25 is the city contribution to that. There's the actual projected cost in the park budget is 1.4.
Okay,
They have.
That's
they have-
including the park fund.
good to know.
Okay, also, I didn't know, but the beginning fund balance went up 40,000 also.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to page 10. Actually, wait a minute, just stay on page 9. Ridge Road increased by 25,000. West Orchard increased by 25,000. And Matt can tell you why those increased.
Hey, thanks to Duke Energy, I believe, on those.
Yeah, it's in part with the delays with Duke Energy, but there's been an extensive amount of the road base. There's a lot more grid that we used. We used the geogrid in the road and undercutting of the street. The combination of the grid and right now we don't know exactly how much more. The project's not 100% complete, but there was there's just a handful of more ancillary items to go along with the road in addition to that grid and the subbase of the road. I felt it appropriate to bump up both budgets for Ridge and West Orchard, so we don't have to ask for more money a second time with this budget. So it's I don't think we'll spend all $50,000 of that, but we'll spend over half of it, I believe.
Okay, on page 10, there's just Dixie curb and sidewalk, Highland to Silver. There was some extra work that was completed for 26,000 that wasn't in the original budget. And I can't remember if I mentioned that the beginning fund balance also increased quite a bit. It was over 400, 500.
Right, as recall, we improved the front, the work that was done across the dozing lot, and that the serpentine sidewalk, and that was the main change that we made, along with some improvements to the drainage from the original design.
And the beginning budget increased 540,000 on that fund also. And then finally, on the capital projects fund, the beginning balance increased 121,000. And then in this, the building renovation came in, I think over $200,000 more than we had in the budget. And let's see what else was in there. I think the gate and the fence, we increased by $10,000. And the electric sign, we did increase also, just because there will probably need to be some kind of landscaping around, or rock or stone around it, or, you know, so we did increase that to $70,000 here in the budget.
With the miscellaneous, with the building expense, the building renovation,
Yeah,
was anything added to that from the start of from the original budget, or did the bid just come in higher than what we expected?
I think we grabbed a lot of stuff and put it all together, hoping that by packaging it, you know, so the HVAC and the fire and the police, and then adding it to the HVAC into the fire, you know, that some of that would be able to bring some of the costs down. We probably, Andrew, we added a little bit of scope because scope creep, but figured that to get it done, and you know, we're still working on old parts of the building.
Sure.
Yeah, some of it's stuff. I mean, the police department HVAC is HVAC system that wasn't replaced in the 2014 remodel.
Okay.
Police evidence room HVAC, you know, with fentanyl and the increase in some of the drugs that we're seeing and the dangers, we've had to increase ventilation. So there's There is some additional work that's in there, and then a combination of some of it came in more expensive. We're moving the door in the lobby to that goes between the secure part of the building and the open part of the lobby, because right now employees are going through two doors there. They're coming out into the public part, and just we included that as a basis in some of the coronavirus mitigation factors too, is reducing it that pass through there.
So it's kind of both, Greg. I mean, we did add quite a bit, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think there was some radios purchased, both for the public works and admin, so that we can speak with the police and the fire. And then, especially if there's an emergency, because they're rarely in the building. And then the police equipment. Andrew, do you want to explain that?
Yeah.
The body cameras?
Yeah. So what we had, so next year we had, I think, $120 something thousand budgeted to completely replace our body cameras and our cruiser cameras. And that was something that when we purchased them, we kind of scoped out, I think 5 years as a potential life of those. What we're finding is that the cruiser cams, which are actually the more expensive portion of that, are going to outlast that 5 years. The body cameras, we've already had 2 fail because they are not as water resistant as we would have hoped they were. The company has since come out with a newer version that has a much higher water proof rating. So what we've done is basically we've put off the cruiser camera portion of that project to 10 years from the original purchase date. And our thought is we'll have to replace body cams once during the life cycle of a cruiser cam. So instead of that $120,000 expense next year, we moved about $30,000 of that to this year. And then the remaining we got rid of. We didn't move it. It's already budgeted another 5 years out. So we just got rid of the cruiser cam portion.
Well, speaking for myself, that's certainly something I will always, I don't want to say approve of, but, certainly in today's environment, it's a good idea that, quite frankly, as long as we're doing our due diligence, we have the latest and greatest when it comes to that. It protects everybody. So.
Yeah, thank you. And honestly, we faced a situation where we could spend about $1,000 to replace 2 that broke. And then look at, what happens if we start losing more, or go ahead and make that purchase now and have ones that are going to, last another 5 or 6 years. And I think it makes the most sense right now.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chief.
So really that's, again, back to Amy's original thing. We're really approving, and next meeting, just the 1 page. I wanted to go through the budget line item, just so you know where it's all coming in. Amy, all this money that's coming in and offset is not all going into, we're not spending a good portion of that. And we are increasing the capital. Is that correct?
Yeah, it got cut off.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, all the ending fund balances are much higher than the original fund balance that we budgeted.
So they're not being used. They're going back.
Some of it is, but
Some of it is, yeah.
some of it. And then there was just 2 more items. The fire equipment increase for the vehicle exhaust system. Adam, you want to explain that?
Sure. So the vehicle exhaust system, the grant was for $58,000. So in that grant, we were figuring just looking at fire bays. However, the ambulance bays have been added to that. It's just easier to do that whole project at one time instead of having them come back in and split that. So that is part of that with that situation there. The ambulances are obviously the most frequently used vehicles. So that kind of adds that in there. But $58,000 of that total cost is offset with grant revenue.
Yeah, and then we also have, is it the UTV? Was that in there before?
So the UTV was not in there. The UTV is being purchased. We came in, the gear was originally budgeted at $90,000. We were able to get a very good price on the gear So we're buying the gear that we need, and then we basically took the money that was from the gear and put it towards the UTV. The thought process with the UTV is obviously we've been borrowing one of those every time we have a major event in the city, and we have worn out the welcome on borrowing that equipment. So we've added that in there. The thought process is events at the orphanage, the trails at Highland Cemetery. There's multiple things we can utilize that piece of equipment for.
Okay, and then the final change, well, two changes. There's purchase of a V-Box for the 2012 Kenworth dump truck. Is that correct, Matt?
That's correct. We haven't purchased it yet. We're just budgeting for it. I've been trying to get that pricing for that. But our old V-Box is on its last legs. We will have to get it through another winter. Thankfully, last winter, we really, I don't know if we ever put salt in it because we had such a mild winter last year. We got by with just the one truck. But anyway, it's replacing the V-Box, and it's something that we'll be able to use moving forward and move to other trucks, just like we've done with the one we've got right now.
Okay, and then the final thing is the transfer from the general fund to the capital replacement fund. With the cost in this increase in the transfer needs to increase to fund these increases. So that transfer increase. So that's it.
Any questions, concerns?
Very comfortable with it.
If there's any other questions before the next reading, just get with Amy, myself, or Andrew. That's fine. Let us know. All right, Claire, you're back on. We had first reading. We're taking off, or now we're at the first reading of meeting dates, correct?
Mhm.
That's correct. So we have ordinance 2020-10, and that's an ordinance establishing regular meeting dates of the Fort Mitchell City Council for the year 2021.
Any questions with that? All right.
Mm-mm.
And taking off number C with the open burn, we're on D, resolution. So the resolution with Cincinnati Bell selling this would be changing the territory to red fiber parent so they can be within our easements. You wanna read that? You want to read a summary of that, or what do you?
Yeah. Resolution number 2020-10, a resolution of the city of Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, approving the transfer of control of Cincinnati Bell Inc. and Cincinnati Bell Extended Territories LLC to Red Fiber Parent LLC and RF Merger Sub Inc.
And everybody probably heard about that, the merger and everything. This is what all the other cities are passing, and it's just a resolution. I would need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Knockhazel,
Second,
second, Mr. Dethridge. My voice call, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone oppose? All right, motion carries. Thank you. I think, Claire, that was your last. Let me check before I start on the mayor's report. Is there any comments on Facebook, Joe or Andrew?
I have not seen any.
Nothing on YouTube.
Not on YouTube. So citizens and guests, I'm going to go ahead and move on then. Under the mayor's report, I have a couple things. You probably have seen or heard the governor's report that the I-75 bridge would be open by December the 23rd. I candidly am excited that is. Knowing construction, I cringe when somebody actually says a true date because they haven't started demoing and they haven't started removing anything, but that is what they said, December 23rd. So we'll see. But with that, we obviously are dealing with a lot of, within our Dixie Highway trucks to people passing through, and it's obviously going to be 6 weeks then at a minimum for this to continue. And I know the county said a big thanks to Fort Mitchell Police Department that had to go down and help shut down 75, going all the way back to 275. And that was a lot of hours in there. So Andrew, thanks for all your work with that. And I know the county appreciated that. But that's really the update with the bridge. COVID, I personally know 12 or 13 people within the city that have it, from neighbors to friends that live within this community. You know, I know it's at the schools and things. So obviously we are meeting with Zoom, and I assume that we'll be meeting again as long as the county is in red. That will stay this way. We've shut down the offices for people to come in and visit, but everyone, because we can spread out here in the city, you'll have everybody's attending work, and we have offices that we're able to spread out to. But I don't have any updated numbers as far as what they are right now within the community, but from the amount of people that I know and things, I'm obviously taking it serious. So the Greyhound, you probably heard rumors that the Greyhound Tavern sold, and that indeed Gary Holland from the Holland Group and Bob Hoffer purchased that, and they intend to keep the Greyhound intact. And you know, I think they're going to reinvent the Greyhound a little bit. I heard some concerns throughout the community that you know, something, you know, the Greyhound can't withstand anything. But the real story, if you really go back, the Greyhound has evolved since the 30s many times, from it being a literally a bookie parlor and kind of a gentleman club to you know, they had a family, more of a family atmosphere, and then eventually kind of more of a culinary type feel. So I know that they plan on bringing some of that out, more family, and also maybe more of a steakhouse type feel, expanding some of the bar. So they're excited to be part of the community. And one of the things the owner said to me is that he's excited for what Fort Mitchell has in that downtown area, what we've created, and they really believe that they can capitalize and continue to bring more people down there. So I'm excited for that. The city administrator position is going to be put out this week. We will advertise that with Amy. Did you decide we'll put that on not only social media but through the admin, through KLC, through what are the other?
Yeah, the city administrators group, the finance officers group, the ad district, KLC, webpage, Facebook.
So when we start doing that and resumes coming in, I've asked Mr. Dethridge, Mr. Polgears, and Ms. Knockhazel to represent and be on a committee for hiring. Once someone has been narrowed down, I will involve other members of council and things. So as we go through the process, so I will keep you informed as we move forward with that. And then swearing in, all of us are going to need to be sworn in before the first of the year. If you'll start coordinating that with Amy, you know, I imagine December and January's council meetings will be you know, over Zoom. Really, Allison's the only new person. Maybe we'll take some pictures of her and make sure we publicize that. But if everybody else will need to be sworn in and coordinate that with Amy, that would be much appreciated. And the last thing I have is the famous Fort Mitchell deer that everybody heard about. I've been very vocal on that. I worry about the Fort Mitchell herd that, you know, we're going to need, and I'm not looking for action or anything else, but even when the state officers came up here, said that we have a pretty large deer population, and at some point we're going to have to really come up with a plan. You know, what some of the things that are disappointing, I guess I'd like Andrew to maybe take us through what happened and what's the penalties and stuff, because I think it's really important for council to know.
Yeah, and without getting too specific on the case, since it will go to court, I mean, there are state charges that can apply in this particular case because there were some things that were done that weren't appropriate in terms of hunting. But when it comes to a person shooting a deer with a bow and arrow in the city of Fort Mitchell, it's currently a $50 civil penalty. That's what's on the books for us. So,
The ordinance states a what is it?
Has to
State
be a fixed target. You can only shoot a bow and arrow at a fixed target within the city. So the violation will be for violating that part of the ordinance.
It does creep up, but that's kind of scary after really looking at the ordinance per se, that if Mr. Polgears or a neighbor of his felt like they were out sitting out in their backyard, the police, they don't have really the authority to trespass and look. It's not illegal to carry. And if they discharge that weapon at a non-fixed target, and yet they had a hunting license, that's their only penalty. So I think it's something that we need to really look at, and it was kind of eye-opening for me to think, because having a deer taken without saying that specific thing in the violations, at least from the city of Fort Mitchell, it was a $50 fine. So,
I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. We need to take a good hard look at this. There's probably several other nuisance ordinances we need to take a look at. With that being said, the individual that harvested this deer illegally, will we be citing him or her? Okay.
We're working on that. Where this occurred, we legally have to be able to prove that it occurred in Fort Mitchell. So
okay, understood. I mean, I know Kentucky Fish and Wildlife has designated this deer as a nationally recognized deer. Being a deer hunter, I hate to see any type of animal, but especially this one, taken illegally. So even if it is only $50, I think we should do whatever we can. So.
Yeah, and there's other bucks and other large deer within the community. I wasn't sure if I saw this buck or another one earlier that week before it was harvested, and I actually saw the buck that I saw actually had a wound in its side where somebody else had tried to put that deer down. So it's out there.
Sure.
I think we just need to pay attention to that.
Okay. Thank you all.
That's all I have under the mayor's report, Andrew.
Gotta take myself off mute. You covered the deer. That's the big news lately. I've sent out an email kind of giving an update to council just on some of the COVID precautions that we're putting back in place within the city building. We have closed the lobby again. We are no longer doing fingerprinting. Fire department's no longer doing car seat inspections or installs. We do have, we've had 2 employees who tested positive fairly recently. We don't have any other exposures right now that we're dealing with within the ranks of employment. We do have 1 employee working from home. So, it's hitting home, as the mayor said, and we're just trying to make sure we do everything we can to protect our employees and their families, as well as, our staffing, particularly making sure that we are able to keep our emergency staffing, our emergency personnel, and our shifts staffed. So that's been a big focus of the last week. We have a revised return to work policy that's going out today to the employees, and just following the latest from CDC and Kentucky Department of Health and the Northern Kentucky Health District. And then we've also run it by our EMS medical director to make sure we're doing all the best practices to keep everybody safe. But again, also address making sure that we keep staffed and we can still serve the citizens. I think we've talked about this at previous meetings, but we are still in the process on the FEMA grant. So that's ongoing, but we have submitted expenses and we expect to be able to submit a second set of expenses later on if we incur more expenses related to the virus. Those are that's all I got. You're muted now.
How about that? Comments from council?
Are we thinking about doing any incentives for businesses during the winter?
Mary, we did it the first time. It may not be before we do a final amendment of the budget to kind of take a look and see if we think over the next several months. I think it's been hard. I haven't seen anybody's numbers, but I kind of know some of the restaurants have done better than others. And same with some of the other businesses. I think the budget really represents, we came in above where we were anticipating. So it does say a little bit about the businesses. Now I'm not trying to generalize it, but I don't know what other people think, but I don't know what to think.
Mhm.
Well, I just think as we go into the winter, that we're not going to be able to eat outside as much as we were able to until, through end of last week.
I'll give that some thought.
I'll see what else, if there's other cities, if there's other programs going on. I'll reach out to other city administrators and see if there's anything to suggest.
I'll jump. I think as most of you all know, we've gone through a very thorough reorganization of PDS. And one of the things that will directly impact Fort Mitchell is that I was part of a committee that we looked at code enforcement, and we looked at their expenses as well as, what taxes basically covered for code enforcement. And what we found was that the expense for code enforcement that it's charged to each city is really peanuts, quite honestly. So pretty much every city that uses code enforcement is going to see an increase come next fiscal year. So just give you a heads up. Fort Mitchell it's not going to be a sizable increase. I know, for example, Mayor Reinersman was on the committee with me. Independence is going to see a huge increase, and he understood it and supported it. So Fort Mitchell, on the other hand, like I said, it's not going to be. I think it's going to be like a $2,000 to $3,000 increase. So I just want to let you all know that's coming next fiscal year. So that'll have to be part of our budget. I don't know if Sharmley has reached out to you, Mayor, or you, Andrew, yet, but that's definitely coming. So
Yeah, she mentioned a couple other, kind of pay-as-you-go to processes on some of the other things.
Yeah. Yep.
Does that change your focus? I gotta, when we're getting ready to reappoint the code enforcement to the Board of Adjustments, to anything like that, we're one of a select few cities that still do that in-house. Does that change your mind?
No, not really. Because I'll say this about the code enforcement board. I know that they, we've always had a good group of volunteers as part of that. And I think I've always liked the idea of having peers, as part of the hearing process. Whereas with PDS being the hearing board, things might be different in Latonia versus Ludlow versus Covington versus Fort Mitchell. So.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that the Finance Committee is scheduled to meet Monday, November 30th at 6:30. We're going to review investments and also discuss the park renovations and just run it past council, anybody is welcome to come.
Good.
Also, I'd like to congratulate everybody that ran. It's nice to have an election that's finished. It's been a great first.
It was a hard race, Jerry, a very difficult race.
It was, but it's been a great first term for me. So thank you guys for everything. It's been a pleasure. Scott, thanks for your service and efforts, and welcome aboard, Allison.
Anyone else comments, council? All right, we'll get into department head report. Amy, you kind of did your report. The only thing I'd kind of like to know is how are we doing on collecting taxes and different things?
We've collected 96% of the taxes.
Wow.
Good.
We are about 2% behind last year, as far as the collection rate, probably because of COVID and because of the grace period, but not too far off. And then I did just want to say that I met with occupational license users group for Kenton County and the Kenton County treasurer, and they said that overall occupational license taxes from March until the end of September, I guess April 1st through the end of September, we're down 3% over the whole county. Just to let you know, I think we're even a little less than that. So we're doing pretty good, but that's all I've got.
Any questions for Amy? Chief Fuller, you're next on my scatterboard.
As I learn how to unmute. All right, so I've got a few things. We're wrapping up hydrant maintenance. So that is where we winterize the hydrants to make sure that none of them are retaining water. We'll go through that list. Anything that we find that is having a drainage issue, we'll go back and we'll pump those and then go back and check them again. If they're wet the second time, we notify the water district to repair those. So we are working on that process, wrapping that up. The new ladder truck is here. We are waiting on a date from the manufacturer for the training on that from the manufacturer. We have started driver's training on that so that we are moving forward with at least that aspect of it while we're waiting on them to schedule dates. The new ambulance is ordered. Because of COVID, there's a delay in some of the manufacturing on the ambulances. So we are looking at April of 2021 before that arrives. And that is because we got in when we did. Some people are ordering after us or even longer wait periods. So that is looking like that will be on track. Grant wise, we obviously did not get the staffing grant for the 1.4 million to hire 4 additional personnel. We did make it to the peer review portion of that. So they did give us some guidance on what to look at and improve on for next year. Again, every year we tend to get to the very end on that grant and never actually make it into the funding part of that. So we'll continue to look at that. The grant for the cot was denied. Therefore, that has been added in there. That is in the capital to finish out the cot with the purchase of the ambulance. Amy mentioned our recruitment and retention coordinator, which is the grant funded position. That position starts on Monday, the 23rd. We have hired Jeff Gronick for that position. Jeff is previously with Fort Mitchell as a part-time firefighter EMT from 96 to 2005. He worked as the assistant fire chief for the city of Covington. Currently works as a captain in another department in Northern Kentucky. 38 years of experience, 48 documented interns over the years. Most of those holding officer positions in Northern Kentucky. So we're pretty excited to be bringing him on board. He's very excited to be coming back here. So it's a win-win for all of us. And we did create that position. It's a little unique. We did require that to be a firefighter EMT. We also required fire instructor. That way, with the questions of the state and how the recruit classes are going to go, that gives us the ability to also have a little more flexibility if we need to do things with other departments. He is also a level 3 instructor. There were only a handful of those in the entire state of Kentucky. So that's kind of another unique aspect of bringing him on board. We have added some part-time staff just to offset with some of our staffing concerns. So we are bringing them on. Still the goal of having 5 per shift. These guys will be filling in some open positions that exist there. I'm happy to say that 4 of those hires are volunteers here, current volunteers, 2 of which are actually previous Beechwood interns. The other two are volunteers one who started their fire service career here as a volunteer, and another who has joined us in the last couple of years as a volunteer. So that's pretty exciting. We've actually been able to bring our own people into those positions. And then we hired 3 from outside the department that are very experienced from other agencies. So that's pretty exciting to be bringing them on. We currently have 8 new volunteers that are in various portions of the volunteer process. And we have a few more that we're waiting to bring the recruitment and retention coordinator on to review. So we're doing very good on that aspect of things. And for the month, obviously in the accounts report, 168 runs. Our call volume has not decreased. Recently, we're probably up. I know for a few months we were down, but we're staying right around that 165 to 170 mark month after month, which is a little higher than our normal 154. So we are seeing a little bit of a run increase there. Like I said, we're finishing up hydrant maintenance, and we have suspended a few things because of COVID. So we'll pick those back up once we are no longer in the red.
Any questions for Chief Fuller? Chief, are you doing drill tomorrow on Grandview?
That is still the game plan. We have left drill on there as long as we can be outside and socially distanced. We have left training in there. So we do still intend to use the property on Grandview tomorrow night. That's an acquired structure. I think that'll be our 2nd or 3rd week of using that. So we will hopefully be able to get over there tomorrow night.
So if council's not doing anything tomorrow night, the house on the top of Grandview, as we talked about, will be demolished, and it'll be pretty much their last practice. So might be something fun to see.
We have plenty of extra gear. Our new gear arrived today, so we can put everybody in some gear, and we'll get you right in there and let you see what it's really like. We'll smoke it up and get you crawling around and throw all kinds of obstacles at you.
See, Scott McVeigh's already ready to go.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Joe, you're next. What do we got?
All right, thanks, Mayor. From the communication side, we are very active on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I know the city is used to having the ice skating event on the recreation side from the day before Thanksgiving on Wednesday, but we have decided because of COVID to go ahead and just postpone that. We're not going to cancel it. We're just going to postpone it to possibly January or February. We're just going to play it by ear. Also, we've been getting some calls about the Festival of Light tickets that we usually sell. We're not doing that this year either because they are not selling them. Basically, with Festival of Lights, you have to go there online and purchase the tickets, and there are reservations that you have to make. You actually can't even go to Festival of Lights and purchase the tickets there day of. So we're not going to be doing that as well. One thing we are going to be doing, though, on a lighter note, is a Christmas lights contest. We put that out on Friday, and it's going to be called Let It Glow. And we're going to ask residents through December 11th through the 13th to have their Christmas lights on. And we'll have a committee of 3-5 people go out and drive around Fort Mitchell and select about 15 houses. And we'll announce the selected houses on the following Friday on the 18th. And we'll put that out on social media and our website to letting people know what the addresses are. So if they want to drive around, look at the houses. And each house that we select will receive a gift card from a Fort Mitchell business. So we're looking forward to doing that. I even received a call from another Northern Kentucky city this morning asking about our contest. They saw it and they're going to do something similar. The last thing is talk to Lakeside Park this morning and talk to Grace over there, Grace Neltner, and we are just spitballing right now, thinking about possibly putting together something of a luminary kits. It's preliminary right now. We're just thinking about it. We're not sure if we're going to go through with it. We don't know the logistics yet, but that's just something else we might have here this holiday season. So that's all I have right now.
And Joe, I should have brought this up during council comments, but I've seen a lot and heard a lot of great comments about the Let It Glow. So, and what I like about it is not only does it get the community involved, but you're helping to stimulate the local businesses a little bit as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great idea. I met with Public Works today. They're going to have all the lights. Typically, they have the lights up before Thanksgiving. We would have a Christmas tree lighting and Santa Claus coming. And obviously, we're not going to do any of that this year. But they're going to have the whole city will be on by December the 3rd. And then our light up is, what's the date of that? December the 15th, Joe? What did you say?
For the Christmas tree lighting or the lights contest, that's the 11th through the 13th.
11th through the 13th. So we wanted to make sure that we're on and we'll be ready.
Yeah.
We'll be ready. Any questions for Joe? All right. Andrew?
Not too much. We are still working on hiring. You may have seen our most recent hire, Steve McElroy, out. He retired from Newport and has hit the ground running with us. We actually were able to get him out of field training a little bit early because he just picked up on our streets very quickly and obviously already had the law enforcement knowledge down. I do want to thank a couple different people. I want to thank Sergeant Gross for his help on I-75 the morning in the aftermath of the bridge fire. He was really the one that spearheaded getting, from what I can tell anyway, was the one who spearheaded getting the closure backed up to 275, which I do think helped divert people in an efficient manner because 75 northbound was just completely stopped for hours. So that was a good call. And I believe Specialist Brown was working the overnight shift that night, and because of high call volume in Covington and all the traffic related incidents that were going on, he was the only police officer available in most of the northern section of our county for at least a couple hours that night. So kudos to him for holding down multiple cities there for a little while. Speaking of Specialist Brown, over the weekend, we did have a pursuit that started in front of Kroger. Actually, an Edgewood officer was the officer that initiated the stop. And it was, I said over the weekend, I apologize, it was late last week. The person who was being pursued had actually been pursued by Covington earlier that day and had made statements that he was a sniper and he was going to kill people and lots of things. So he was pursued over into Campbell County. Someone, I believe it was a Fort Wright car, was able to do stop sticks and take out one of his tires on 275. And then Kane was able to successfully do a pit maneuver on the vehicle on 471. Unfortunately, because of the danger involved with the guy making comments about being a sniper and whatnot, we couldn't do the kind of follow through we hoped to do on a pit maneuver. So he was able to get going again. Kane was able to pit him again. And then after that, the guy started ramming cruisers, and Fort Thomas cruiser kind of got the brunt of that. And they were able to take him off of the road into the tree line on 471 and get him apprehended. He was obviously not in a condition to be out driving. And so I'm glad they were able to get that guy off the road and hopefully, obviously not only get someone who is intoxicated off the road, but also hopefully he's able to get some whatever help he needs for the crisis he was going through at the time. So it resolved as peacefully, I guess. I mean, there's wrecked vehicles, but nobody was hurt. So that's a good thing. You have our report, and again, our calls were down in the 20% range last month. I think we're about 17% down for the year. Part of that, I think, is COVID, and part just we've had some staffing issues this year. So we're managing. We did just switch back today, actually, to a 12-hour shift schedule because trying to prevent our officers from having overlapping shifts with each other, so that if we do end up with a shift that gets an exposure, that we're not having cross contamination, so to speak, between shifts. That's all I got.
Any questions for Chief Sherberg? All right, Matt, you're up. I know I had lunch with your guys today, and they said there's another local city that they lost their entire public works to COVID. And so one of the things I talked to your group about is just how to prevent that overlap, because I think you're on quarantine right now yourself, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. I can share, it was my daughter, my adult daughter does not live here. where she was tested positive, but she had visited with us, so we all quarantined, and she is doing fine. She's healthy and back through her time. She actually gets to go back to work tomorrow, so she's doing well, and so that's good. But as with the precautions, I've been staying away.
Anything going on in Public Works?
With the streets, the concrete street work, that the 4 streets, that work is complete. And I think that was a success in preparing those streets. You've probably seen the out in front of the city building, there's 2 sections of the driveway. I think that was also mentioned in Joe's report there, but there are 2 sections of the driveway that we're having the contractor redo, and they've got good start on that. They'll be pouring the first section tomorrow morning. That should be done, if not by Wednesday, then Wednesday or Thursday, that work should be complete, and have the driveway open back up by early next week. Ridge Road, West Orchard and Coleman, the only work currently remaining is on Ridge Road. They've finished all the base asphalt, doing the curb work. The base asphalt work's finished. It'll have just a couple more sections of sidewalk left to do, and the putting the yards back in. And we've got good enough weather for them certainly to do the sod work. And the plan has been to wait for them to do the final course of asphalt until next spring. And if that's we're still evaluating whether that's any possibility before the end of the year. So but we'll get everybody's yards buttoned back up. That's the best part of this, is residents won't have to deal with a mess out front. Bryce Avenue, I keep getting a new date from Stewart Ironworks. They're dealing with COVID problems with their crew. They're busy. They said deer hunting season is interfering with their installations, but all that is a combo of reasons. I asked them if at all possible to get the stair railing in before Thanksgiving, but I didn't get any promises. So if not by next week, it'll be the following week. And crew work. I don't know if you've seen our new Public Works member around town, but Dan Cook, he started here last month, and he's been doing very well. Very experienced fellow, had worked for the City of Independence for many years, and he's working out very well. He's well underway to getting his CDL license, which is something that we do require, which most other cities in the area don't require for our trucks. But everything's working out well with him. The other crew work, I mean, right now they're doing a lot with street sweeping. They've been doing some crack sealing work throughout the city. I believe we're finished with our list of asphalt patching work that we're going to be doing this year. Also, getting our trucks ready, our bigger trucks ready for the dirty word, that 4-letter word of SNOW. And if that comes around again this year, which we want to be prepared for that, well, we're making sure all the equipment's ready to go. Other than that, with the road work, Grace Avenue, between Grace Court and the what I call Grace Connector, it's also named Grace Avenue, but anyway, there's that project, the drainage and street project there, and Watch Hill Road. We're pressing forward with design with the engineer firms who are on those streets, and getting the work ready to bid out in January, February on Grace Avenue, and also Watch Hill if possible, so that we can start work on those in the spring. That's all I have.
Matt, I do have a question. Have you heard anything from Duke Energy?
Actually, I believe, you mean with the trimming in the?
Yes, right.
There?
Right.
Would you like to answer that?
On Beechwood.
Yeah, I will reach back out to see what the delay is tomorrow. So the last I heard from them was they had hoped to do it the last week of October, first week in November, and that clearly didn't happen.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, I saw, and bear with me, it's been several weeks since I heard about it, so I don't remember the details, but I saw where the city of Covington entered into a contract with Kentucky Department of Transportation as far as road maintenance on state roads. Is that something, I don't know if you know anything about it, is that something that, you know, especially with Kentucky Department's Transportation's lack of filling potholes on Dixie Highway, is that something that may be beneficial to the city?
That's the first I've heard of it.
Okay.
But if it means that there's a lot that they've not followed up with in as timely a fashion as we would like, it's something that we may want to look into.
I'll find the article and I'll email it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Matt? All right. There's nothing else. Motion to adjourn.
Let me say a quick kudos to Matt's crew for getting a bunch of stop signs out last week when we had power out to a bunch of the traffic lights over 75. They helped us out. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Motion, Mr. Polgear, second, Mr. McVeigh. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Anyone opposed? Motion adjourned.
Yeah, everybody have a
Take
great
care.
Thanksgiving and see y'all in a month.